You are trapped in a dream. You look around and you notice four walls that seem to be reflecting four different versions of yourself. To wake up, you must figure out how to bring these pieces together through the looking glass. This game will be a 3D, third-person puzzle game where the player has to use objects reflected by mirrors in order to help them reach the end of a level. In this game, the player is trapped in a dream, and the only way to get out is to solve these unexplained puzzles their brain has made in front of them. The player will be able to look around at different mirrors to see what objects it reflects, as shown in this prototype I made. While looking away from a mirror, the player will not be able to move the objects it reflects, but they can stand on and walk into them. Only certain objects can be picked up and moved within a level. To solve the puzzles, it is important for the player to decide where they want to place these objects. Other objects will either be static or moving platforms, and this will be denoted by the object's color. In this example, the gray object is static and the yellow object is movable. Also, the player will be able to jump over incoming lasers or on top of objects, whether they are visible to the player or not. For this game, the player's main goal will be to reach the end door within the level using the objects they have available to them. If the player dies, then they must restart the current level they are on. Completing each level will lead the player closer and closer to escaping the dream that they are currently trapped in. Some sub-goals that the player can achieve along the way are destroying turrets with their own lasers in order to receive a shield power-up, and also meeting a time limit in order to earn more stars towards completing the level. These stars are not pertinent to completing the game, but they are there for those who would like to achieve them. Looking into the floor and trying to move an object through it will not work because the floor's main purpose is to indicate all the objects that are currently in the room. The player can move objects only while they are looking through the mirror reflecting it, so it is very important for the player to decide which mirror they want to face. The player can only have one shield at a time, and because of this, shield power-ups will only protect the player against one laser hit. One of the anti-forces in this game are turrets. Turrets shoot a single laser projectile every few seconds. These lasers can reflect off of mirrors, and they can also be absorbed by opaque objects. Time is another anti-force in this game, and for each level the player will have a target time goal to meet. The difference between these two anti-forces is that if the player is hit by a laser and they do not have a shield, then they will die and have to restart, whereas if the player doesn't meet the target time limit, then they are missing out on the achievement stars that they could have. Looking Glass can be compared to Museum of Simulation Technology. Both of these games manipulate and use objects in order to reach the end of a level with a strong focus on perspective. The difference between these two games is that Museum of SimTech manipulates the scale of objects, whereas Looking Glass just manipulates the player's ability to see and move them. A play possibility could be that the player will see a block in front of them, and this block is absorbing a laser from a turret that isn't too far from it. The player can simply walk around this block to avoid dying from the laser. Choosing to go around the block and continue on with the puzzle will save the player time in waiting for the turret to destroy itself, but they will not be able to receive the power-up that comes with destroying the turret. In this same scenario, the player can choose to move the block, which will make the laser bounce off of the mirror and back at the turret, destroying it. Choosing to move the block will give the player a shield power-up, which will carry on with them until they are hit with the laser, but at the cost of time. Making all the mirrors function at runtime might be very hard on rendering, so to mitigate this, we can make a false mirror where the player sees copies of themselves and objects through an invisible collider. If the actual mirror becomes too complicated within the first week of development, then we can always fall back on my working prototype that I displayed earlier. This was Looking Glass, and thank you so much for your time.